Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. As you know that today we'll be hosting the National Film and Video Foundation. As we know the rules of our webinars, we are requesting everyone to make sure their microphones are switched off. As you know that the microphones can be very disruptive to to the people who will be hosting this particular webinar. Let me take this opportunity to welcome everyone, and I know many people are just starting to join now, and we will accept them as they come. First of all, let me extend our hands as SACIF to the National Film and Video Foundation for giving us an opportunity to host their webinar, which all of you have been asking about since we postponed it last week. We could not have. Can everyone please switch off your microphone so that we can be able to have a proper engagement? Can everyone just switch off their microphone? As I was saying that the session of the Nfvf was supposed to be hosted a week before, but unfortunately on the same week, the Nfvf was also having their stakeholder engagement. So as you know that you cannot host a session when there is a stakeholder engagement, because we wanted to give the Nfvf a full attention so that they can be able to give us all the information that they have for us. So I see that Mr. Henry is here, who will be one of the key person in this particular session on the side of the Nfvf. Can we please switch off our microphones? Let's not have too many microphones. Yeah, so I'm going to go right away into the beginning of this webinar. We're just requesting everyone to switch off their microphone so that, yeah, please, thank you. We don't want our stakeholders to not give us proper information because we are all speaking at the same time. Yeah, so as I was saying, that I see Mr. Henry is here from the Nfvf. He will also announce his colleagues, since I know that he's not alone. They are with other colleagues from the Nfvf. Yeah, so let me just go through our webinar rules as usual. We want to welcome everyone to the Nfvf information sharing webinar. Today we are hosting this beautiful agency that is dealing with the film activities around the country. So we hope you are going to benefit a lot today. Yeah, so as you know, in our webinar sessions, we always start with the rules to make sure everybody is in line with our webinars. Please ensure the environment you will be logged into doesn't have any disturbances, e.g. background noise like that what was happening now is very, very disruptive. Once logged in, can all microphones be switched off if you are not speaking? When a participant wishes to speak, can all microphones be switched off? Thank you. When a participant wishes to speak, kindly indicate by turning on raising your hand. Should you wish to ask a question or engage, please wait until the current speaker is done speaking or allow questions. You can also write burning questions on the chat box. We will actually read them out at the end when the speaker requests for questions. We will also read out the questions which will be shared on our Facebook page. Please keep your questions short and brief, relevant to the subject discussion of the workshop. Please note the session will be recorded, as it will be required for everyone to be as responsible as possible. Focus and attention will be required so that participants can grasp as much as they can. This information will save your life. Please pay attention. If you are a filmmaker, the Nfvf is the right institution for you. So please, if you don't switch your mics, you are disrupting everybody and it becomes a problem. Yeah, no, Mr. Henry, welcome. As you know, my name is Romeo. I'm coming from the South African Arts and Culture Youth Forum. Let me welcome Mr. Henry. Mr. Henry, Chauke, feel welcome. You will also announce your colleagues who are going to be part of the session. Thank you very much for joining us. We wish you well on this particular session. Thank you.
I think let me start by greeting everyone who has joined. And thank you so much, Romeo, for that. I think let me introduce myself. My name is Henry Chauke. I'm from National Film and Video Foundation. I'm an industry training and development manager for the organization. We reach out to our colleagues at work. The aim is to make sure that we give you the best information, and I'm glad my colleagues, they put everything on hold to come and attend this meeting, because we understand, we value the youth of the country, because I think we believe that we have a lot of stories that need. If we empower the youth as an Nfvf, we'll be able to those transformation. And I think maybe I'm going to ask my colleagues themselves, so that it's people to hear the voices, and maybe they'll properly introduce themselves. So I'll start with Nombuso. Nombuso, are you online?
Yes, I'm online. Hi, everybody. My name is Nombuso Makubane. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager for the National Film and Video Foundation.
Thank you so much, Nombuso. Mr. Makeba, Ntutu.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tutugo Makeba. I'm the Partnerships and Distribution Manager at the Nfvf.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Makeba. Refilwe, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Refilwe Hlabiwa. I'm the Production and Development Manager from.
All right. Can I ask Tandikile to please introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Tandekile Hlachwayo. I'm the Nfvf Applications Officer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tandikile. I think, Mr. Romeo, let me start by going through the agenda, the proposed agenda. So I'm going to introduce the Nfvf and our approach as an organization. And I'm going to talk about training and development. And we have Refilwe, who's going to talk about production and development. We have Nombuso, who's going to talk about marketing, and we have Tutuko to talk about distribution. All right. So as I was saying, I'm going to talk about the Nfvf, who we are, our vision and objectives, and the funding pillars, and also training development as a whole. And my other colleagues will talk about what they do, or that department. And then I think to make this easier, I think, can I ask that people keep notes or the questions, and then they will have a session where they are going to ask questions at the end of the presentation, because we're trying to avoid a situation where someone will ask information about something that one of my colleagues is going to talk about. So if they can allow us an opportunity to present, and then make notes, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll have an opportunity of answering the questions. So, and I think we clear on that one. So the National Film and Video Foundation was established under the Nfvf Act Act number 73 of 1997. Let me just say properly. All right, so under the Act, and if you look at the NVF is an agency under the Department of that was created to ensure that we create equitable growth of South African films and video foundation. So our mandate as an NFVF is to make sure that we transform the industry, the filmmaking industry. So that's the reason why we exist as an NFVF. So our vision, we want to be known as a world-class development and funding agency committed to nurturing, promoting and protecting South African films and television industry. We harness the strength of South Africa's diversity to transform our sector and deliver a flourishing audiovisual economy to benefit all of us, right? So that's our vision as an organization. And obviously, having an objective, we also have. I'm just having a vision. We also have the objectives as an organization, objectives that we need to achieve or transform as an NFVF. Okay. The first objective is to increase the number of South African films and those films to be produced by previously disadvantaged individuals. So that's number one objective for NVF. The reason why we say previously disadvantaged individuals, because we understand as South Africans, we do have a lot of stories that those stories, most of them, they go untold. And we feel that people with the previously disadvantaged backgrounds, they can tell stories better than everyone else because they relate to what happened. There are a lot of heroes and heroines within our communities, and we need people like previously disadvantaged people to tell those stories. And we also, objective number 2 is to also increase the audience access to South African films. We do this by going across South Africa, having those film festivals, because we want people to understand, to watch our films. And sometimes maybe they don't watch our films because of, although the point number 4, I said we do this by doing promoting South African film industry locally, which is we do this by going to DIV encounters. There's another festival which is called Nfvf. It's focusing on nature and Joburg film festivals and all those things. So we participate. Our aim of participation there is to make sure that we promote our South African film industry, and we also go internationally, where we go to MIPCOM, NSC, and even Up Africa. The Burkina Faso, Canada, and all that. So we're trying to go as far as outside South Africa, so that people get to understand our stories as South Africans. And the last one, in terms of our objective. So I'm just checking my mic if I'm still on. Okay, all right, I'm still safe. All right, so the last one, we promote social cohesion and the expression of nation stories through films, and by this we're talking about the stories that people can relate to. We encourage people to tell people about the stories that are happening in the townships, in the communities, in South Africa. So I think these are the stories that promote us South Africans, like our diversity within South Africa. So I think it says we need to tell our stories the best way we know how, right? So those are our objectives as an NVF. And on my second slide, I said we are the agency. We are the funding agency under the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. And how do we have categorized the funding, because not everyone qualify for everything. So I think then it's easier to manage our funding, and in these 4 categories. We have education and training, we have marketing and distribution, we have production funding and development funding. So I'm responsible for education and training. We have Nombuso and Tutuko responsible for marketing and distribution. And we have Refilu and Yolanda responsible for development funding and production funding. So these are the 4 categories of the funding pillars of the Nfvf. So as we go on through the slides, we're going to give each manager to go through what they do and how you can access this funding. Under training, we have national bursaries and international bursaries and a training grant. And marketing, we also have markets and festival attendance, marketing and distribution of films, and national film festival hosting. And under development, we have fiction and documentary funding, shorts for film and docues, animation and made for TV and micro budget and TV format. And under production, we have fiction and documentaries and animation and made for TV, macro budget and web series. Those are the types of funding that we fund as an Nfvf. But then you'll get more information about this from the responsible managers. And we understand that everyone is not on the same level in terms of the skill, in terms of the experience. So as an Nfvf, then we have done the tiered approach. This is how we categorize who qualifies for which funding at what level. So we'll explain that in detail. So we understand like we cannot be funding the people who've well experienced or zero experience. So there's categories in which people can apply for. So tier approach. The tier 3s, these are the people that have no experience in the industry. Sorry. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. The tier 3, these are the guys who have zero experience, the new entrants to the industry. And we also have the tier 2. The tier 2, there's the filmmakers with limited experience who have produced 1 or 2 theoretical released feature films or documentaries, or 2 to 3 short films or commercials. And the tier 1, these are the experienced filmmakers who have produced 3 to 5 theoretical released films. So the tier 1, these are the well experienced filmmakers, and then 2 limited, and 3 it's zero experience. So as we go through the funding, like the grants, you can see at which level do we fund. There will be some funding where we fund the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and so on. So as they present, get to understand and hear and class yourself as to which level, on what level you are as a filmmaker or aspiring filmmaker. All right. So I'm going to talk about the training and development, which is what I'm responsible for within the organization. Under training, we have the following. This is the kind of like the value chain of the department of the training and development, or education and development. So we understand that the filmmaking industry is still new to mostly people of color. So we go as far as grade 8. The grade 8 learners, we go to different schools. Yeah, the aim of the program, which is called the schools program, the aim there is to create awareness about the careers within the industry, because we understand learners, or the high school learners, they don't know much, or they don't know much about the careers within the filmmaking industry. So when we go to school, the aim there is to make sure that we talk about careers and we cover the whole entire value chain of the industry, and then advise them on how to apply, which institutions and how much and all that. So that's what we do in the training. And we also have the Nfvf bursary scheme. This is somebody who's completed grade 12, wants to study any course that Nfvf funds. And by any course, I'm referring to any course that's behind the scene. Behind the scene, it's behind the camera. That's what I'm trying to say. So then they apply to Nfvf. I think Tandegile will cover the process of applying on how to access all these funds that we want to talk about. So we also have the Nfvf bursary scheme. So this bursary scheme, there's two ways. There's a national bursary support program, and we also have the international bursary support program. So national bursary program, it's locally, and internationally it's outside, but we'll talk more about that. And we also have the internship programs. These are the guys that have completed, they have the qualification, but then they need exposure to the industry. So what they do, then will advertise, and then the graduates will apply so that they get to be placed at different production companies across South Africa. We have production companies where we place these students in across South Africa. And we also have the mentorship opportunity. These are the guys that maybe they've completed the internship. Internship normally is 12 months. So they've done the internship. Now they don't have more experience. So one of the examples we've done here, we have partnered with, in one of the mentorship, we've partnered with the company from Canada, the Blue Ice Production. They said they wanted, I think they were looking for 2 females, one director, one producer, to be in the production set in Canada for 3 weeks. So the mentorship, this is what we talk about. So should there be an opportunity, we release a call and we place the students there. So we also had an opportunity where we partnered with the Zanzibar Film Festival. We had 6 students from South Africa. They went to Zanzibar for 2 weeks to work with students from Tanzania as well as Saudi Arabia to produce a film within 48 hours. So that was a very nice mentorship program. So this is, as it happens, then we place the students. So if you want to be part of this, is be frequently checking the Nfvf website. And we have the Nfvf training initiatives. These are the in-house programs that we do as an Nfvf. We have programs under the umbrella we do, which is SIDIBA. So under the SIDIBA, we have the script writing program. We have the directors. We have producing. We have the master classes. We put them under SIDIBA umbrella, which SIDIBA, as most of you will know, SIDIBA is a well. So we believe that we go deep to give you the best from the industry. So we normally make use of the people from the industry to facilitate these programs. The reason why we have this program is to make sure that we bridge the gap between what the industry is offering, or what the tertiaries are offering, and then what the industry is looking for. So that's the reason why we have this training initiative from Nfvf to make sure that we have the right people training people who participate in this. All right. And then we also have Nfvf funding initiatives. This is when we partner with other institutions to deliver certain programs. So it can be any other thing. It's just a matter of who comes to us and who do we go to at a specific time to deliver a specific program. So this is the whole thing, the whole value chain that we're trying to do to deliver, to transform the industry in terms of the training development. So we mentioned the bursaries that Nfvf is offering. So national bursaries, as I've mentioned earlier on, to say national bursaries are the bursaries to study within South Africa, and you had to study behind the scenes careers. So as it is, we have more than, I think last year we had more than 107 bursary students that we funded as an Nfvf. So this, unfortunately, in this case, we only pay tuition fees only. We don't pay for accommodation. We don't pay for books. We don't have allowance or daily allowance. And the reason for that is our approach is to try to share the little that we have, because we understand most young kids want to go to school. So if we have to take the X amount and fund someone fully and then not give other people an opportunity to study, we felt like we're not doing justice to other kids. So we thought, let's just share the piece of a pie that we have just to assist where we can. So we also advise people to maybe study at institutions which are next to where they stay. They don't have to pay for accommodation. They can travel to and from, or they can apply for other funding. And here we also encourage that when you apply for the national bursaries, try to apply at the South African public tertiary institutions. By public, I'm referring to those traditional universities like UJ, Wits, University of Limpopo, University of Venda, and when we talk about private institutions, those are the AFTAs, City Varsity, Damelin, and anything that government is not involved into. So our preference will be given to students who want to study at South African public institutions, and the reason for that is the cost, the fees. It's cheaper to find someone who attends at public institutions and than someone who's from other, like the private institutions. For example, we have one institution that requires a first year student to pay almost 88,000 first year. And if you take the first year from public, they want students to pay 35,000. So there's a huge difference. So we can fund more students who are studying in public than the one who are studying at tertiary, private institutions. And we also have the international bursaries. This, unfortunately, is for those who want to study postgraduate qualification. Postgraduate qualification in South African, in the course or in course that are not offered in South Africa. So there are some masters that are offered in South Africa, and unfortunately, we cannot fund you under international bursary. So you just have to go and study something that is not offered in South Africa, and then we pay up to 250,000 on this one, and we only fund for bursary students per financial year. So you can understand the competition here is very, very tight. So you just have to do your own research about which program you want to study, and the one question that we normally ask is, how are you going to contribute back to the industry upon completion of the specific program that you want to study? And we also have something called the training grant, training provider funding. We fund up to 350,000. This funding is for training providers who wants to train people on a specific skills, specific or critical skills of the industry. This opportunity gives people that would never went to school. So as if you have a training provider that is based in Limpopo, is accredited by CETA, they have the program that they want to train. For example, like learnership and equip level 3 on film and television production program. So we can fund that specific training provider. So we fund up to 350,000 per project. So to talk more about the national bursaries, this we said we can apply to study anywhere in South Africa. And unfortunately, we start from a 3-year national diploma up to PhD. So there's no limit. Unfortunately, our starting point, I think it might be like cut a lot of people outside, but then we understand a 3-year diploma and up to PhD. And international bursaries, we said qualifying to study postgraduate and film-related programs that are not offered in South Africa. So those are the 2 types of bursaries that we offer as an Nfvf. How do you apply? Not how, but what do you need to do to apply for the national bursaries? Everything we do it online. Tandy will take you through the process of applying. You complete that online, and before you come to Nfvf, remember, we are the funding agency. You come to us seeking funding, so you have to go and apply at your specific institution where you want to study. Because as a part of the submission, we want a letter of acceptance or a letter of acknowledgement of your application, and we also need a 1-page letter of motivation. Why do you want to study the course you say you want to study? you have to explain to us, because I think on this letter, I think you can tell if somebody wants to really understand what they want to study, because then how they explain, how they motivate, you get to know more of the individual. Remember here, we don't know you personally. We read what you send to us. So even if we select based on what you submitted to us. So it's nothing personal, it's about what you submitted to us, and you must be clear and give more details as to why you want to study, the course you want to study. And certified ID copies. You must attach certified ID copies and matric certificates or latest academic results. So latest academic results, you get someone who's doing first year at tertiary, and they can submit the latest semester results in order to qualify for bursaries. And we also have the pay slip for an applicant who's employed or parents. If you want to apply, because one of the things that we look into when you apply for a bursary is you need to demonstrate the financial need. So hence we ask you to submit the pay slip of both parents, if you have, and if not, then maybe one of your parents is deceased, then we request you to attach a death certificate. Or if you don't know the whereabouts of one of your parents, we ask you to prepare an affidavit to say, I'm staying with my mom or my dad only. We don't know where our mom is, and that needs to be stamped by the police. So we take that as valid. So that's under the national bursaries. So the key things that we look for, and which when you apply for national bursaries, it's a motivation. You need to tell us more. You have to comprise everything and within one page. The motivation must be so detailed that we get to understand exactly why and how and where you come from and the course you want to study. And the results, the academic performance, I think that is one thing that we look. As much as we say you're previously disadvantaged, you need funding to go to school, we also encourage you to do well, pass, and you stand a better chance of being considered. And the last point which we consider is the financial need. Do you have to demonstrate, you have to give us more information so that we understand your situation, all right? And I think the same with international bursaries. Here, this is because we understand some people, this is for somebody who's underage. You can still have your mom and to submit those proof of financial statements, like can be the payslip, it can be the bank statement or the RP5 of your parents if you're underage. And if you're a legal guardian, then if you're unemployed, then you have to say that on your affidavit, or if you're employed, then you have to attach your payslip so that we know where you are, your financial position. And again, we need a matric certificate. We need a copy of undergraduate qualification, because remember, this is for the postgraduate qualification. And we also have the IT copy and the most recent academic results. Everything that I've mentioned here, it will be, you just have to do it online. It's just a matter of open the link, uploading all the documents that are needed. You don't have to come to Nfvf. You can do this wherever you are, all right? And so the evaluation criteria. So the number one, we said we just check the financial need, like which is number one here. The cap is 600,000. So if your parents earn less than 600,000, you qualify for bursaries. And I think Nfvf is still lenient here. I think with NSFAS, they are saying if your parents earn more than 300,000, you don't qualify. So with Nfvf, I think we're still lenient here. So we say 600,000. So if you earn less than that, then you qualify for bursary. Anything more than that, unfortunately, we can't, because the assumption is you can afford to pay your fees. And then, as I've mentioned, the academic performance, we look at this, how well you perform academically. And remember, bear in mind that when we release a call or an advert for bursary, it goes across 9 provinces, different schools, and have different numbers of individuals applying. So this, it really has to set you apart from other people, that you have to be like very competitive. Your results must be very great. You must pass, and you stand a better chance of being considered for bursary. And I said the motivation, you still have to motivate well. It must be a well-detailed motivation, so that we get to understand why you want to study and how much you know about the industry. So the letter must very be detailed. And the course, we look at the course, we look at which course you want to study. Remember we said we are transforming behind the scenes careers. So we unfortunately don't do performance, we don't do acting, we don't do dance, we don't do anything behind anything in front of the camera, we don't do. We don't fund. So be careful on the course that you want to study. It should be anything behind the camera. All right, and we also look at the demographics. Because remember, we said as an Nfvf, we exist because we want to transform the industry. So we look at the gender, race, disability, and home province. At the moment, we're still getting a lot of applications from Western Cape, KZN, and Gauteng. And as much as we say we get a lot of applications from those provinces, that report can be a bit skewed, because somebody from Limpopo comes to Gauteng, instead of using the Limpopo address, they prefer to use the one in Gauteng. So maybe the perception there is to, if someone used the Gauteng address, there's then a chance of being considered. So we encourage people to use the home addresses, because this then gives us the true reflection of the report, and if we're transforming the whole country, because we don't want to transform the 3 provinces. As it is, we are only funding 2 students from Limpopo. We don't have a lot of applications coming from Limpopo. So I think after this presentation, I think maybe things will be different, because we have the call, the bursary call, the advert is still out there. It's open, it's closing on 31st of August. So if you need to apply, listen to Tandegile's presentation on how to apply before the closing date, which is 31st of August. And then that's under bursaries. So I'm going to talk about the training provider funding. So in order to qualify for this training provider funding, these are for people who want to own a training provider. And maybe if you're based in Limpopo and you are registered with MICCT, then these are the things that we're looking for. You must provide a list of the trainees and their competencies, like at what level they are, and details of the practical training. Like when they're busy training, do you have any practical training for them? Please give us more details on that. And the other one is the details of the post-program support. Yes, you've trained them. After the program, how do you plan to support them? Because our aim as an organization, it's not a matter of touch and go. It's we still want to make sure that we transform to the fullest. So give us the detail on how you're going to support the students after the program. And again, if your program is about assessment and evaluation, give us a clear indication how you're going to assess the students, and the evaluation criteria, how do you do that, and the CVs of the facilitators, and the proof of appointment of those facilitators. Because sometimes you get an application, people have mentioned like the brilliant facilitators, and yet they've never spoken to those facilitators. Because remember now, once you mention big names, it gives you an added advantage to be qualified, to be approved for funding, only to find that they don't even know about your proposal. So hence we ask you to attach the proof of appointment from between you and the facilitator. And again, I think the last one, the last one we really, and this is very important. Very important, you have to say that, because remember now, as an Nfvf, as much as we are saying we're the funding agency, we are using the public funds. So if you're going to apply for any funding from government, make sure that you have a valid tax clearance certificate. because governments want to know the person who's qualifying for funding is someone who pays. So we need that as well. So you must attach it on your application. So then, in terms of as we go through your application as a training provider applicant, things that we look for. Things that we look for. Okay. Things that we look for. The curriculum, the program that you're going to train, it must be accredited. And we always encourage people that it must be accredited by MICT, because that's our regulation body. So if you want to train any program, it must be accredited by them. And you must identify the targeted learners. How are you going to identify the target learners? On your application, you must tell us how you have identified those learners and how the program will be delivered and which industry skill you're trying to address. So the curriculum must cover all those 4 items that I've mentioned. And the trainers, we look into the experience of the trainers, those that you have attached on your CVs. We look at what level are they as the facilitators, are they qualified to facilitate, and we also check the proven track record for delivering other programs, because we just want to know it's not the first time they're doing it. We just want to see the success rate of how great they are. And the training provider company, like the company that is applying for funding, does the company have the capacity to deliver the training? If you come to us and say you want to train 30 or 40 learners, you have the capacity to train. So you on your application, please be as detailed as possible, and then it's easier for someone to read. Because remember, here we don't give an opportunity to come to present to us. So put more information as you can, so that it eliminates question marks, and then it gives you a better chance of being approved. And then we also look at the budget. How realistic is your budget? 40 students, 3 million is not realistic. So we have to give us the realistic budget. And we also look at the consideration. This is the province. Where are you going to train? Because as much as you can be a training provider in Joburg, but then our focus is who's going to benefit out of the program. You can be in Joburg, but applying to train learners in Limpopo. We have funded a lot of companies that are based in different places and training different places. So as much as you know someone from Joburg or wherever, if you want to train students in Limpopo, then you can partner with that training provider, because we do have that option of you have an idea and you're based in Limpopo, you can partner with the company that's accredited by CETA, as long as there's a memorandum of understanding between you and the company, and that MOU must be attached as well on as a part of the application. And then we also look at the BE status of the training provider. It's supposed to be like the percentage. More percentage should be for blacks, and if you have a black female, it counts more. So those are the things that we look for under training provider funding. So I think that's where my presentation will end. I've covered national bursaries and international and training provider and all other mentorship and career awareness programs. So I think under training and development, this is where my presentation will end. If you have any other question based on what I presented, I think just keep note of that. And then at the end of the presentation, then you can ask those questions. We're going to give you an opportunity to ask questions. So having said that, I think I'm going to ask Refilwe to talk about production and development. So Refilwe?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm standing by.
Okay, no, thank you so much for that. So are you going to share, or do you want me to share the
can you please just move the slides for me? That's all.
All right. So okay, no, that's fine. Thank you. I'll take your lead.
Slide 22.
Slide 22. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Hi everyone. As Henry has introduced, I basically work in the production and development division. So what development means is it's all the steps that you take to enable you to have a script at the end of the process that you can then use to go into production. So what this entails, it means that if you are doing like, if you are writing a film, then it means, yeah, so it will, so if, for instance, it's a feature film, then basically that fund enables you to cover your costs, such as if you're doing a little bit of research. Let's say you're doing a story that is based in, you know, a different province from yours. So that little bit of money can allow you to then travel. If you're doing, you know, a topic that you are not necessarily familiar with, it will allow you to basically get a hold of, you know, the necessary information that you require. So for development in fiction, what you would then send to the Nfvf, if you have gotten approval, is a major turning points document. You do an outline, and then you do various drafts of the script. Throughout this process, you will be helped by a script editor or a story consultant, however, which way you want to call them. Basically, what that means is that once you deliver one of the deliverables, let's say it's the first draft of your script, then there'll be somebody who will read that script and basically help you hone that film to make it the best possible film that it can be. For documentaries, it is slightly different, but there are also certain deliverables. So you'll start off with your research report. For you to be able to do the research report, it means that you have to then do a couple of interviews with, you know, the key people that you'll be following throughout the documentary. It will include things like desktop research, you know. It will include things like gathering all this archive of, you know, all of these things that you want to cover within that documentary. Then the next deliverable would be your outline, and then you'd further hone it down. And even with documentaries, you will have a script of some sort. It's not as detailed as what a fiction script would look like, because with a fiction script, obviously you have to then use that as a guideline for your actors, that these are your lines. Whereas for documentary, it just gives you like a good skeleton or like a base to know that this is how your documentary is going to be structured. These are the things that you're going to cover within the documentary. So just in terms of the funding caps, this is the current a current snapshot of what our funding caps look like. We are in the process of increasing them. So by the end of July, hopefully, if our council has concluded on the funding caps, there will be a little bit of a higher budget for everything across. So for feature films, we do give up to 200,000, and then 40,000 is reserved for a script editor. For a documentary feature, we give 150,000, and then 20,000 is reserved for a script editor. And then for short films, because we do understand that the scope it's much smaller, we give 100,000 rand. For TV formats, we are looking at 200,000, and in animation it's 250. The reason why animation is a little bit more is because we have to make an allowance, because there's storyboarding and you still have to work with a script editor. So basically, I think one of the things that is important to note is that if you are a tier 3 filmmaker, which is a new entrant into the film industry, you are only applicable for short films. So you would qualify for the 100,000 grant, basically. Can you move me to the next slide? Okay, so just in terms of the things that you will submit when you are compiling that application, you submit your motivation. So you have to basically, convince the panel, in terms of why you are the right person to tell, this particular story and why the film is relevant. I think with a lot of things, there's a lot of things where if something happens in the news, for instance, then we'll get a lot of applications that basically have the same theme. So right now, we had a call that was open, and a lot of the projects that we are getting, some of them have to do with COVID-19. So with your motivation, I think it then sets you apart. A lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to this, but I think what you have to note with, if you are a new filmmaker into the industry, one of the things that we are looking to develop is not just necessarily the story, but it's also to see whether, you are the right person. Like if you seem motivated and dedicated, then that is something that also then plays in your favor. The next thing that you'd need to submit is a synopsis. And what a synopsis is, very simply put, is just a quick summary of what the story is. Make sure that when you do put in the synopsis, don't now, say, don't keep it that brief to a point where now the panel doesn't know how the story ends. It shouldn't be a matter of you'll find out the rest as soon as you have given me funding. Basically it's basically the beginning, middle, and end of the story. So if you are a tier 3 applicant, I think we require just a 1 or 2 pager. So it's not a lot, just in terms of what that story is. An outline or a treatment, it's just an expansion on the synopsis, where you get to more detail. Some people with their treatment, they also make references to say that, this is the kind of style of filmmaking that I'm trying to do. It's a very good exercise to even get a couple of images from the internet to show the kind of color schemes that you want to work with, just so that the people who are reading your application are equipped with the kind of filmmaking that you are trying to tell. In terms of the schedule, that's you just mapping out how long it's going to take you to either do the development process or the production process. In terms of the budget, that's also quite self-explanatory. So here, just make sure that you input everything, whether it be your data costs, if you need to, work with a researcher, if you need to, every single cost that you could potentially think of added here. If your story is based in Limpopo and you live in Cape Town, for instance, then, this is the area where you say that, my subject stays in this and this area, so I will need to go to Limpopo for 6 days, and I need accommodation, I need transport, I need food. You make sure that everything is included there. In terms of your finance plan, basically this is more for if your project is more than the cap amount that Nfvf is approving. So, for example, if your film is going to cost you 150,000 and you know that the Nfvf for short films is only giving 100,000, this is where you then kind of give us an indication of how you are going to finance that shortfall. So perhaps, that 50,000 that still needs to be raised, you are going to put in an application to GSC maybe for 25,000, and maybe the other 25,000 you'll be able to raise yourself. So you just give the Nfvf an indication of what the plan of action is. In terms of the target audience, it's important that even when you are applying in development, you need to know where this film is going to go, so you'll get into specifics in terms of, this is the age demographic I'm looking to send this film. I mean, this film is targeted towards maybe the youth, maybe I'm looking at people between 16 and 35. I'm looking for maybe people that live in a certain area. You know, I think you have to be mindful that not every film is going to be for everybody. Not everything is family viewing. So this is also to kind of ascertain if you understand where this content is going to lie when it's all said and done. Another thing that we look at is your CV. Just in terms of like the experience that you have, it really helps. Make sure that even if you are a tier 3 applicant, I mean, you know, make sure that you've got your schooling information there, just so that we can see, you know, if maybe you have gone to film school, if you have not. It also helps that you also include, because a lot of people go to maybe like script writing workshops, you know, it also helps to kind of include that information so that we can, you know, so that when someone is assessing the application, they can also see that you've been doing your own work in order to kind of equip yourself a little bit better, just to be able to be ready for the requirements. And then it's your compliance documentation, which is tax clearance, ID. Company registration is only needed if you are applying as a company. You are able to apply as an individual, but then you need a tax clearance certificate in your own name. Basically, the reason for the tax clearance is because these are state funds, so it's just a mechanism to ensure that we are giving, you know, state funding to somebody who actually does pay their taxes and is in good standing with SARS, because otherwise it's wasteful expenditure. Next slide, please. Okay, this is production funding. So our production funding, there is different kind of production funding that you could get, but production funding, I think it's self-explanatory. Now you've finished with your script, and you are ready to go into production with the film. Just in terms of expectations from the Nfvf, if you are then given the green light and you are contracted, we'd give you a certain amount upfront to go and shoot, and then the rest of the funds, the rest of the funding would be released upon us seeing some of the cuts of the film. So you'd send us maybe a rough cut, and then with every cut that you send us, it's a more refined version. Again, same case as the one that the breakdown that I showed you beforehand, to let you know that there are going to be amendments by the end of this month. But at the moment, we can't communicate that because it's not finalized. So this is what the current snapshot is looking like. For fiction feature films, it's sitting at 1.3 million. This is only for tier 1 and tier 2 filmmakers. For development feature projects, it's 350,000. Also for tier 1 and tier 2 projects. For short films, tier 1 and 2 filmmakers qualify for 200,000. And then if you are doing your first film, or your first or your second film, and you're still a new entrant, then you can apply for 150,000 Rand. And then made for TV and micro budget is 200,000. So just to explain what that is, it's more of your Mzansi or Lokshin Bioscope style kind of film. Usually that is a bit longer. Usually it goes up until around 60 minutes. So that's one way as a tier 3 filmmaker you'd be eligible to apply. And then there's web series where this is available from tiers 1 to tier 3. There is a temptation for a lot of people who want to tell your feature film, and then even though you aren't necessarily a tier 3 filmmaker, you tier yourself as a tier 1 or a tier 2. But I mean, I do just want to discourage that, because everything gets looked at when your application is being assessed. So that's why it's so important to submit your CV, because then we look at your experience as something that is taken into consideration. And the reason why, like Henry had said above, that the reason why we do different funding streams is so that we look at people within the same, who have the same kind of experience, because it's difficult to then now, you know, get funding if you are being compared to somebody who's been in the industry for the last 10 years. So at least if you are being assessed as a tier 3 filmmaker, then you are assessed amongst people with the same skill set as you. Can you take me to the next slide, please? Okay, so the other funding that's available within post-production is for archive. What archive is, it's basically, it's purchasing archive material. So this includes like maybe snippets in the news. So if you think of maybe that iconic walk of when Mandela was walking with Winnie, and yeah, he was released from prison and all of that. So all of that would be archive material. You'd have to go to maybe an SAPC and get them to give you like a quotation in terms of how much it is to use, you know, just those few seconds or those few minutes. Archive is very expensive, so hence we then give 250,000. Usually this is utilized by the guys who are working on documentary projects. And then there's there's funding for post-production. It's 450 for fiction and 120 for non-fiction. Basically what this means is that let's say you have managed to shoot the film by yourself, but you just need a little bit extra just to be able to conclude the editing side of things, because obviously you have to pay your editor, you have to fix the sound, you have to color grade. So these costs would then cover that. Next slide, please. Okay, just in terms of the requirements for production and the production application, very similar to what you would what you'd apply for development. It's just that the only thing that's additional, I mean, there's other things I'll show you on the next slide. The other thing that's definitely mandatory when you are applying for production is that you do have to have a script. So you don't have to have gone through development with the Nfvf, but you must just make sure that when you apply for production, the panel does need to see the full script just so that they can get an understanding of what this film is going to look like, because it is at a much larger financial investment. Next slide. Okay, so these are the additional things where you submit for production. It's a much lengthier application. So here as well, you'd still be able, you'd still need to kind of give an indication in terms of who your target audience is. But then you'd also have to add a marketing and distribution plan. So I think it's great to know who your audience is, but you also kind of have to give the panel an inclination of how you are going to make sure that the material reaches the intended audience. If you are applying, for instance, only for post-production funding, or you are applying for archive, then you do have to give, you have to provide a cut of the film, just so that the team who is looking at the application can basically see, and then you'll explain that, for instance, at this point is where I want to add archive of X, Y, Z, you know. So even if you are applying for archive, you need to make sure that you've already gone and done the homework, and then are able to kind of explain that this is the kind of material that I need, so that I can increase the production value of my project. Letters of consent are needed in the instance that you are usually going to, especially for documentaries, if you're going to maybe do an interview or a documentary about a high profile person or a celebrity, we need to make sure that you've gotten the proper consent from them, because you'll get a really amazing proposal where somebody says, I want to interview, for instance, Julius Malema, I want to profile his life, all of this, and then you get approved for funding, and then come the time that you need to deliver on the project, you don't have the necessary permissions or something like that. So it's just a measure to make sure that you have consulted the people that you are going to basically be interviewing, if they are like high profile people. And then you would also, if for instance you are, okay, this is in terms of item 11, in terms of chain of title. If you are, for instance, going to do maybe an adaptation of a book, maybe you've got a Zakes book that you want to turn into a film, we just need to make sure that you have gone and engaged, for instance, the publishers, and gotten the rights to be able to tell that film, because just to make sure that everything is clean and everything is clear, that somebody is not going to come middle of your production and say that these people don't have the necessary permissions in place to tell this film. And then even a chain of title that you can do, if you aren't able to get a formalized one, you can even go to the police station just to say that this is my concept. It's my original concept. To my knowledge, there's no third party who's going to come and claim that this is their content. Can you please go to the next slide? Okay, just in terms of the elements that are considered while your application is being looked at, like I said, motivation is a big one, especially if you are a new entrant. It's a very big one. The concept, just in terms of what is the story about, what are you trying to convey to the audience, or are some of these things easy to follow? What are the themes that you're trying to kind of convey? We look at the story. Is it believable? Does the plot, the beginning, middle, and end, does it make sense? The structure, that also has to do with the beginning, middle, and end. Does it make sense? Are they, is your character, did they start in one way when the film began, and are they different when the film has ended? Is it interesting? Is it engaging? Characterization, character development, what are the learnings that this character is going to go through throughout the process. Presentation, we also look at how you've put this application together. If you are a new filmmaker, even though you are only expected to submit very few documents, even if it's only just your motivation, your synopsis, very little information, we do look at how this person has presented this information. Is it clear? Is it coherent? Some things sometimes people take things for granted, but have you spell checked? Have you done, all of that, just to make sure that it reads right, and it's easy to follow. Like I mentioned before, we look at the audience. Do you see where this does it fit in with your intended audience? We'll also look at the applicant or the team profile, and then if you are doing a documentary, we will look if you've got the proper consent to tell this film that you want to tell. Next slide. Okay, that is it from my end. Thank you.
Nombuso?
Hi, team. Henry, I appreciate you driving, so you may carry on. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Nombuso Makubane, Marketing and Comms for Nfvf, and I'll be taking you through the things we do in marketing and distribution in our team. So basically, the core of what we do is facilitate the funding process that we do. And we drive the marketing and distribution funding. It's broken down into three levels. Firstly, there's the festival and market attendance, which is both locally and internationally. We contribute towards that travel. The beauty about the festivals this year is that they're mostly virtual, so it's given access to a lot more people to be able to be exposed to the international film festivals because it's virtual and there's sufficient funding to go through for a lot more people. Then when it comes to marketing and distribution, that's where we look at completed projects. So after Refilwe's team has done the production and the development of movies, you now have a complete project that you're ready to expose to either cinema or another film festival or wherever you want to showcase your work. People need to know that this work exists. So what we do is that we assist you with the funding to make sure that marketing and distribution happens for your work to be seen. And we know that in the way South African people do their work, a lot of great work has been coming out of South Africa, but we get more accolades abroad than we do locally. We get awards and recognitions overseas, but we don't make an effort to make sure our work is showcased and seen locally. So this particular fund is what contributes to people knowing that I've worked on a particular movie and this is how wonderful it is. Then the National Film Festival hosting. This is one of my favorite part of the work. What we do is that locally you get a lot of people who do festivals. You'll get one in KZN, one in Eastern Cape, Northern Province, you name it. And within the festivals, that's where you also get to see some of the work that wouldn't necessarily make it onto TV, but is great work worth seeing. So what we do is that we assist people to create festivals. And our festivals can also be targeted to a variety of people. So you get festivals that will benefit the school kids and the young people who are looking into film as an industry. You also get films that are targeting to people already in the industry who could learn more in terms of getting masterclass exposure or first-hand exposure to people who are playing in that space. And then there's obviously the film festival part where they showcase and screen wonderful work that could be very educational to the rest of the people watching. Next one, please, Henry. So the basics of what marketing for us means is that it's a science and art of exploring and creating value to satisfy the needs of the target market at a profit. In this instance, target market is a very tricky subject to talk about because in some cases you may think you know the target market because of the books you've read, and in reality what you think you know versus what's really happening out there is normally two things that don't quite coincide. So I always say you need to walk the ground in order to understand your target market. Don't come and tell me that my target market is children in Togoza when all you've seen is Togoza on TV. You've never been there, you've never spent a day on the street to actually feel the vibe and understand how what you're offering could really work. So, and it's a mistake that we marketers make all the time. We believe one movie we've seen made about Soweto or an article that's biased because the journalist wants to show you a particular angle. And we end up designing a whole campaign that has no relevance to the particular people that we're talking to. So marketing also identifies unfulfilled needs and desires. So we drive innovation and it defines and measures and quantifies the size of the identified market and the profit potential. And sadly, not all initiatives will give you profits, but some of them, the benefit, you profit in terms of educating people, or you profit in terms of making people have better morals and values. So it's not necessarily always a financial benefit. And it also pinpoints which segments of the company is capable of serving best and designs and promotes the appropriate products and services to cater for that particular market. So it's about creating something that is required and desired, also adding value so that you make sure that you're building relationship with the people that you're talking to. And this can apply in a product as in a can of cool drink, as well as a product as complete as a whole film, where there's a core message that actually fills a particular need or desire and is able to build relationships. And that's why you get people who are really loyal to watching their soapies, because a relationship is being built. And that's why you get like the latest productions like a Gomorrah, who will talk about how people who are not educated are coping with lack of literacy and still trying to fit in. That's an educational element, also making us sensitive about how we treat other people. So it's broader than just what you read in the books. You can actually carry it to life. Thanks, Hen. So once you've finished your product, which is a whole film, you need to start marketing your film. And there's certain boxes that you need to tick in order to rate the success of your film. So the first one is that when you do a movie, a whole project, you're doing it to inform. And you also have an obligation to inform people that, hey guys, I have created this. That you do by creating an awareness and providing information about that film. And that could also be in the poster that you portray, in what you've named your project to be, because some of these things are misleading. You read a title of a movie that says something like Finding My Joburg, and you watch the movie hypothetically and you hoping that it's going to show you what Joburg is, whereas it's telling you about the feeling of Joburg, not actually going to Joburg. So just understand that when you inform, you need to be informing accurately in a way that also creates an appetite as well as awareness for whatever you have produced. Once people are aware and they've seen the poster that, okay, there's a movie that's out, you need to persuade them to watch it. And that's by making assertions and creating a belief that your film is the best and nobody should miss it. And these type of persuasions that I've seen working would be for products that depict themselves as absolutely amazing, and then when you get feedback after watching it, it's something totally different to what you expected. So for example, most of us in this group might have been looking forward to watching Queen Sono because the persuasion work that was done by the adverts that were shared made you believe that you really can't miss it. You also need to induce action by creating a sense of urgency so that people really want to watch it first. You guys may be aware that movies actually make the most money in the first few weeks when they get onto the cinemas. So when you induce action, you're driving people to go there fast enough so that your first week is really impactful, if we're talking about a cinema project. Then you reinforce by reminding, refreshing, and assuring. And your reinforcement tools also go through voice, shared stories, so word of mouth. So the message could be strengthened by what you said, but it's more strengthened by people who've actually experienced your project and go out and talk about it. And the one thing that we all fall victim of, which is the last one, is differentiating. People look at something that's a success and they try and mimic it, hoping to mimic the success within it. So we need to know that there's power in differentiating yourselves, how you position yourself, how you make yourself stand out, because that is exactly what's going to move you from the clutter. It declutters you from the mess of everything that's around, makes you stand out, and makes people want to know what this project or movie is about and why I should be part of it. So when you're working on your plan for your marketing plan, you need to make sure you get the 5 tasks, you answer the 5 tasks in your plan to say, in a comfortable way, are you able to inform? Are you persuading people with the messages that you're putting across? Do you believe you'll induce action? Have an understanding of the type of action you'll induce, because you're looking for positive action. How do you then reinforce and differentiate? And some of the great reinforcing tactics would be something as simple as, after you've seen the movie, post about it, or post a picture with it, or enter a particular competition and stand a chance of winning a date with the lead actor. There's various ways where you need to enforce your creativity to assist you in reinforcing the message. And then you have to definitely differentiate. Okay, next slide. When you submit to us for request for funding for marketing and distribution funding, I always advise that you have a marketing plan. And marketing plan is two-pronged. Firstly, it assists in clarifying for you and to you what you're doing and how it's going to look. And secondly, it will speak on your behalf in your absence on what you plan to do. So it includes things like analyze your market completely, understand, does my market really consume movies? Do they even like horror movies? Who else am I competing with? So you need to understand the market that you're operating in and be able to analyze it to the fullest. Then secondly, you identify your target audience. And target audience is understanding who the film is aimed at. Do those people actually exist? What are their age? What race are they? Where are they based? What stage are they in their education? Is the language that you're using to communicate the message in your movie going to be audible to them? Will they understand it? Understand the psychographics, their values, their beliefs, their interest. You can't go and do a satanic movie in a Christian community and think they'll be excited. No, it won't work. And then the media consumption, where can they be found? What do they watch? And when it comes to media consumption, you are allowed in your plan to say that I'm talking to a group of people that do not go to cinemas. So therefore, my plan is to take the cinemas to them by providing drive-ins or whatever the case is. So you also need to be realistic and honest in your plan. Just because your typical target audience doesn't do what the norm does, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be honest about it. And then you also need to understand your target audience and what motivates them. Once your movie's done, what will drive them to go watch it? What language or types of strings would you draw to get them to feel that actually this one we cannot miss? Next point, Henry. And then you need to define the position and the customer promise that you're offering, which links to the previous slide where we're talking about differentiating your film. When you position yourself, you'll be able to own a space that nobody else is occupying, thus minimizing your competitors. And then you set your marketing objectives, which are always smart. You need to be specific in what you want to achieve and be able to see whether you have achieved it or not by measuring it. And it should be a realistic target in that you can achieve it. And it has to be relevant because most people would come up with amazing ideas, but the current people that we're living with now are not ready for that. It's an idea for the future. And you have to be time-based. You need to be able to know when it starts and when it ends. And then you need to set a marketing budget. And I'm very cautious when it comes to giving advice about budgeting because most people are in need of finances holistically. And sometimes when you're setting the budget, you could put a lot of money on your salaries, unnecessarily so, when you could be spending that money paying somebody who's actually equipped to market, to give you a solid marketing plan that could work for you. So when you use your money, doesn't matter how big your pot or how small your pot is, always you try and get good bang for your money. So feel free to invest in somebody who's knowledgeable in a particular skill, like setting a budget, like creating a marketing plan, because you may be a creative who's able to make a great movie. And spend money there, making sure that what you're putting across there will actually reach, versus you thinking, okay, I need to just see what is in, okay, I'll do a bit of a poster here, I'll do a social media, and your plans don't necessarily result in credible people coming to watch your movie or reaching your objectives. Then you have a promotional mix, which I'll take you through. Coordinate and integrate your time plans. And last point, Henry. And then evaluate, control, and follow up. So a promotional mix is when you look at your landscape. Thank you, Henry. When you look at your landscape and you look at tools that you have at your disposal, and then you utilize all of those tools to create a marketing mix that will create the relevant reach that you want to get to your specific target market. So there's traditional advertising, as we know, with your TV, your radio, your billboards, and most of those spaces are not as maximized as they could be, but I could never underestimate the power of radio. So if anything at all, try and invest a bit in your radios, even if it's your community radios, because everybody, regardless of age, gender, race, you name it, listens to the radio. They might not listen to your specific radio station, but radio still occupies us in our cars, occupies us in petrol stations while you wait, and in wherever. It's just a reality. And it has probably more reach than TV and billboards. So never underestimate how you could maximize your budget by using some traditional advertising. Then there's the reality that a lot of people are in social media. I mean, as we speak, we're live on Facebook, and the people who might not be in this particular Zoom meeting now, but who are exposed to the messages that we're sharing. And that shows you the power of social media. But we also know that social media is not maximized in reach, because not every single person is able to access Facebook, nor has the data to do so. So when you're doing the percentage allocation of your promotional mix, you can't go maximize on social media when you know that the reach is not as big as traditional media. Then there's digital advertising, which is those interrupting ads that just play in the middle of the song when you're watching YouTube, but you still remember them because you saw them and they disturbed you. So that's another form of reaching your consumer. And then events and experiences also involves attaching your brand to the type of event where your people will be. An example will be, say your movie is about pro kids documentary, which links a lot to a hip hop lover. If you were to advertise for people to watch that particular documentary, you'll probably go to a Back to the City, where you'll get people who already have a passion and love for the movement, for the person, for the music, and you know you'll get the traction. So know the type of target market you're talking to, where they go, what they like experiencing, and be able to match the experience so that you just magnify what you're offering. And the public relations part will, simply put, is just free media. So getting radio adverts, radio interviews, TV interviews, mentions, editorials on newspapers, you name it. And that also is another place where I would say, pay somebody who's already got the relationships with your morning lives, your ETV, who'll get you the interview that you're looking for. So really understand the importance of utilizing your money in an effective manner. Okay, and then I did mention traditional media, which involves print, TV, cinema, radio, and outdoor. So we can go to the next one. So some of the social media benefits that you would understand is that, firstly, you can build a whole community in your Facebook page because of your social media following. It's very cost effective. It's normally linear, so it allows you to have a very clear strategy of what you need to do and how you need to do it. And also, you don't have to create things from scratch. You can use existing footage and content just to reinforce the message that you're trying to put through. You can promote your posts, obviously at a minimal fee as well. You can take a journey on your audiences, you also get to see who's following you, what else they like, what other pages they're on, and you're able to make sure that it's relevant to the person that you're talking to. You create a conversation. Social media is very interactive in that you put something out now, the response is almost immediate. And that could also be dangerous, because if you put the wrong thing on Twitter, the response is going to be crazy and you might not be able to manage it. And then you also can increase the number of engagements when you utilize the right tools, like using videos. Okay, next slide, please. The previous one. Okay, so when you're using digital advertising, you're able to personalize it, and that comes with association. So you're able to associate what you're offering with the type of brands that people would use. If it's a discount consumer, hypothetically, that you're talking to, then you know you should be advertising on the particular site. It allows for versatility and precise targeting. There's no boundaries in that, because it's global, basically. Whatever you put out there can be reached everywhere, but it's also low cost enough to enable you to stretch it. It allows for better engagement and creativity on your advert. You can also actually click on the advert to learn more and drive people to your particular site where they get to engage with your product a lot more. And it can also enable better customer control, individualization, and it's very quick to do. It's short lead times. You can publish almost immediately. And utilizing websites, blogs, emailers, all of this is a impactful ways of maximizing on your digital advertising. Okay. I did touch a bit on an example of how you'd utilize events and experiences, but you have to identify unique experiences that actually link to your target market. Some things like premiere or taking people to films. You also have to make sure there's alignment in how the event comes along versus what you need to achieve. And you could even target places like film centers because you're doing a movie for people who already love film. Okay. Then there's public relations, which is normally not as expensive, but I really still believe you invest in somebody who's really capable of making it work. It is proactive. The talent must be the face of the film. So if you're going to do a movie, make your lead people be the spokespeople for your movie. It's okay that you're the director and the executive director, but remember, the lead actor is probably the person who's going to create the most excitement for the fans because they want to see that person. You've done great work, but you might not be the relevant face to put for that. It relies a lot on good relationships with media, which is why I say invest in somebody who's already got that. You earn a lot more in terms of monetizing public relations versus what you would if you were to pay for it. So for example, you could have an interview for 5 minutes and the value of that interview could be like 250,000. You wouldn't have been able to pay that if it wasn't for the public relation element. And there's a sense of credibility because you are the voice of pushing the work that you're trying to do. Also allows you to be exclusive in how you position yourself. And you also need to be careful when you do things like press releases and communication that's written. Use the right type of language, sense check the words that you've utilized, check for spelling, find somebody who can proofread for you, because sometimes we encounter a release and just trying to read the first sentence can be so exhausting. You end up not reading the rest of the document. So I still repeat, invest in somebody who's good at doing these type of things. And PR will definitely give you a heightened visibility for your campaign. Okay. So some of the marketing elements that you need to remember when you're doing your film. The title goes a long way. What you name your film and is one of the things that will enable us to understand, okay, this is what the movie's about and this is who it's targeted. So for example, if you read a title that says Zulu Wedding, you know that, okay, there's a wedding. Oh, and it's probably Zulus. Hey, they're probably going to be stomping the yard. You have an idea based on just what you've read on the title. Then the poster should depict what the title is all about. So if the title is Zulu Wedding and a poster shows you somebody wearing a gladiator Roman outfit with vendor beads, you're like, okay, what's that all about? So it's important for the two to speak the same language. The third part, which is a soundtrack, is normally one of the most underutilized tools in advertising films for South Africans. And the reason is because making music is expensive. And it's so interesting watching, I'll make an example again with Gomorrah. When you're watching the series and they play a song, it's a song you know, it's a song you've got in your collection, it's a Dukes or a it's somebody you know, it's a song you can sing along to, versus watching a South African holistic movie and then the music is foreign to home. So, but we understand what the reason is for not us having great soundtrack for the work we do. But I think it's really something we should explore. Talk to guys who make music, create partnerships, find ways to mutually benefit from this particular project so everybody can be empowered. And that also goes beyond just music, even the type of wardrobe you do. go to a fashion designer that you could also amplify in your movie. And always remember that your trailer speaks volume. And if you're portraying a 60-minute feature and you can only do a 1-minute trailer, how are you going to pick elements that have an appetite appeal that will drive us consumers to want to watch that movie? And it's also not about giving out everything in a trailer. So a trailer is supposed to make you think, oh, what happened? What now? And I still go back to the fact that if your specialty is making a movie and not creating an aha moment for consumers, get a team of people that will be able to assist you so that your trailer creates the moment that will drive people to want to see what more is happening. And the type of talent that you use, I have to admit, Matwete really changed the playing field, because prior to that, people that I used to encounter who are making movies and I jokingly say, hey, you must put me in your movie, they'll say, no, you need to use visible talent that is known and has a track record. But Matwete used two gentlemen we didn't know, and it turned out to be amazing on cinema, and their work was great as well. So I don't think there's actually a solution for talent, but I think make a movie that you know will definitely have an impact to the people that you're talking to and will deliver the final product as you have it in mind. And then you need to have a form of website or an app or something that when people are exposed to your trailer, poster, or name, if they go on Google, which is what we all do, you see something, you read it quickly, you go home and you Google the balance, or you get on your phone and you Google the balance, it should lead you somewhere that will give you enough information. So a lot of things end up being not complete because we didn't think of particularly the last part where you're able to say, I've just Googled Zulu wedding and oh, this is what it's all about. And also, you could utilize social media holistically. So you can drive people to your Facebook page, your Instagram page, drive them everywhere, but it's about a continuation of what you've offered within your poster or title so that it really creates that appetite for whatever you're offering. And some of the guys have done great stuff in that they actually start talking about their films before they even go on circuit. So we see some of the behind the scenes, you see some of the wow makeup issues that they've made. Maybe there's an accident and you see how they've made the blood look on the face, and that just makes you want to be part of that journey and want to see the complete movie. Okay. I've actually gone through this already in the previous slide, Henry. So features of a good marketing campaign. It's always, always, always rooted in the consumer, because the consumer is the end user. So for you who is doing a movie, you need to show that you understand who the consumer is, how they speak, what's important to them, where they are, and find out how to engage with them. Don't speak at them, speak with them. Create a conversation, an interaction, a relationship. And you also have to offer alternative creative conversations to engage with them. So they must be able to tweet about what they've seen. They must be able to have conversations about, okay, after we saw Losing Lerato, what did we learn? How should we treat our baby daddies? What is the bigger picture here? What is in it for me? And you get people who talk beyond, I guess our eye is different. The consumer eye is about the story, the depiction, and what made me cry. Whereas for you guys who are filmmakers, you will say, yeah, but there was a 3-second pause there that wasn't necessary. Yeah, but the sunlight was shining from this side and the shadow was this. We don't care about that. So when I'm saying rooted on the consumer, yes, create world-class work, but understand the consumer is about the story that you're telling and how it moves them or engages them. Then you also need to be selecting the best tools for marketing. And it goes back to how much do you have and how you best utilize it. So when you've got money, make sure it resonates with the customer and reaches them wherever they are, like a radio would. It's relevant and interesting, it's aligned, and the marketing tools because you have an option, you don't have to use all of them. Use what you know will be suitable, but you can use as many as possible, but make sure there's an impact. And people actually tend to underestimate the impact of posters. No, the pamphlets, the small ones. So the ones that you find on the wiper of your car when you've gone to a party. We look at that before we chuck it. We read it before we chuck it. And if it's done very nicely and it excites you, you then keep it and probably attend that event. Okay, Henry? So the most important part is that after all is said and done, you need to be able to evaluate your work. Can I finish my work, please? So you need to be able to evaluate your work. You need to be able to look back and say, you're able to link the film. You have a solid audience development strategy. Your detailed marketing plan must be a doable plan. So it's not just a plan that looks amazing on paper, but it should also be actionable. You need to have a detailed marketing budget. And I still say, if people are able to invest in somebody who will assist you in that space, you need to. And then in instances where you have an exhibitor or a distributor, which Ntutuko will take you through, it's good to have a letter that shows that after we've given you money, there's somebody who will enable you to reach the spaces that you need to. So a signed distribution agreement, an exhibitor letter, an invitation to a festival that you'll be screening at, all of those things come in handy. And it's important also to know that having these relationships with aggregators and distributors is only beneficial to your movie. So don't make it a late by the way initiative. Start as early as possible. Once you're still working on the parts that Refilio was talking about, start talking to people to say, okay, I'm working on this synopsis. This is the storyline. Do you think it will work for this target market? Have those conversations. And you need to be clear and complete your whole chain. And remember that the title of your movie speaks for you in your absence. But when you requesting funding from us, all the compliance documents that are aligned on praxis need to be there. But if you write your plan in a way that ticks these 9 boxes, you're most likely standing yourself in a better space to be viewed as one of the compliant applications that we can then pass forward to panel. Bearing in mind, we don't make the decision. We have a panel that drives that. Okay. And some of the questions that you need to ask yourself before you press that send button at the end. Does the project have a unique selling point? Does it differentiate? Does it stand apart? Does the film have a local audience or international audience? And you need to be clear, because how you approach that is different. You can't speak Hola, whatever, Zulu thing to an international audience that it might not make sense to. Is the target market clear and identifiable? Is your proposal comprehensive with marketing and communications plans clearly outlined? Do you have a marketing and communication plan that correlates to the target audience that you're talking to? Is the budget realistic? Do you have a comprehensive distribution strategy, which ideally you should have spoken to a distribution person about? Do you have a realistic sales projection? How are you going to make your money? Is it through cinema? Is it through going to festivals? Is it through selling it to TV, Netflix, you name it? So does the proposal show understanding of the South African film market? So once you answer all those particular questions, you can press send. And when it comes to festival hosting, for funding requirements, you need a motivation letter, what the aims of the festival are and what the objectives are. Earlier on in the conversation, I did highlight that not all festivals are the same, and be comfortable with saying this is what mine is all about and this is what I plan to achieve. You don't have to mimic the next festival. What are the benefits to the local film industry, filmmakers who be attending the festival? Are you working with them, which is probably ideal? You also need a detailed report of previous festivals that you may have done in the past, but not everybody has a track record. In instances where you don't feel uncomfortable, say what you need to say. You have to have a detailed festival plan. If it's over 5 days, what are your plans for those 5 days? If you're screening, what are you screening? Where venues will be, the time slots, and all of that. Some of the simpler way of doing festivals is that during the day it's educational, in the evening it's screening. That's not a must do. You do what you feel will be relevant for what you need to achieve for your target market. Okay? And then when you need to have a detailed finance plan indicating the name of the company, the amount that you're requesting, and details of what you're using that money for. And sometimes the money that you require could be 500,000, but maybe from the Nfvf you're requesting only 200,000 because you've already got a sponsor for the balance. Include that in your detailed finance plan so that we're able to see if the festival looks comprehensive and unachievable for the amount that you've put, you're already creating a gap in the mind of a person assessing your work. So when you do your complete finance plan, have a detailed plan to say, this I'll fund myself, or I've got a sponsor for that, and this is what I'm requesting. And that then results in a festival budget that is clear. Have your audience development strategy. And when you do your audience development strategy, also think continuity and sustainability, because firstly, you don't want to have a once-off festival that you can't sustain for the following year. And secondly, you also want to take your crowd with, so they must attend all the festivals that you curate, and also invite people to come, and that way you'll ensure that you grow. Do research at all times on the potential attendees. And research could be something as simple as, if it's a virtual festival, get people to sign on, get to know their name, their age, specific things that will enable you to drive certain decisions going forward. So you don't have to formalize it with a questionnaire, but find opportunities to always research and get to know about your festival attendees and potential attendees earlier on within the relationships. And then understand the importance of skills transfer, creating employment, using the people in where you come from. Don't have to fly in people from Joburg. Use the resources that you have locally. And also, non-negotiable, always have your audited financial statements, because that also forms part of your compliance documents. Some of the questions that you need to ask yourself is that, is there anything unique about this festivals? Bearing in mind, people think about what they spend their money on. So if I've already had this experience at the Soweto Film Festival, why should I then go to the Springs Film Festival? Because it's similar. So you need to find out what's unique about you and drive that in your communication to say, in this festival, this is what you'll benefit. You need to also understand that your proposal shows your target audience very clearly. The program reflects the target audience for the festival. Your festival plan is comprehensive. Your budget is realistic and aligned to the plans that you've depicted, and your proposal shows enough planning and preparedness to host the festival. So this is a document that speaks on your behalf in your absence. So make sure that it says all the messaging that you would have liked to say if you were speaking for yourself. Does the proposal have the audience development strategy? How do you develop your audience further after this particular festival that you're hosting? Do you have a detailed marketing and communication plan aligned to the target audience? Has the applicant tried to integrate relevant local and governmental structures? And a lot of you guys do know the importance when you're requesting for festival hosting of aligning with local municipalities and the local departments of arts and culture, because the primary interest is to see the industry grow, and their primary interest is the same as yours who's applying. So it's always nice to align with them and partner with them, and don't think about how much they're giving me, but there's the value in them endorsing what you're doing, and it'll give you more magnitude and also enable you to get more sponsors going forward. And then any key strategic focus for the festivals need to be aligned along with the correlating strategy interventions. So all of this is crucial, because as I repeat, the document that you send to the NFVF will be your voice, and we need to see that you took time to do it. You know exactly what you need to achieve. You can make it come alive before we invest money to you, because it's not our money, it's the government money. A lot of people use this money, so we'd rather make sure it's given where it is required and where it's earned. Okay, that's me, and Tutsugo will be taking you through distribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nombuso, for your presentation. I think so far, I think this is information overload, and I think initially we said we're going to take questions at the end of the presentation, but then I think there's been a call to say, can we take few questions and then we'll proceed to distribution and then applications, because I think some people might lose some of the questions, the pending issues they have. So I think for now, if you can open up for like maybe less than 10 minutes, question session, like question and answer session, based on what's been presented so far. So Romeo, I'm not sure how you're gonna take the questions. Do you have any existing questions so far?
Yeah, Henry.
Yes, we have.
Yes, Palisa?
We have questions from both our Zoom chat and the Facebook Live. So I don't know if you will allow me to read the question. Then you can answer. Then we can open the floor to also have something to say.
Yeah. So in the interest of time, because I'm looking, it's 2:08. So can we take questions within 10 minutes? And then we proceed, because we don't want this session to prolong longer than what we planned for, because we have other commitments. So maybe before we take questions, should we not have an answer to your question? We'll go and research and come back and provide Sakai with the answer. And can I please ask questions to be about NNVF without attacking, without fighting, because this session is about how we can empower, how can we work together as an NFVF and the community at large. So let's stay away from attacking. Let's stay away from being personal, and let's keep it to the presentation in the NFVF and nothing else. Are we clear on that? Okay.
Good afternoon, leadership.
Alisa, can I ask you to read out those questions that you have, and I think my team is here listening as well. So as you ask questions, I think it's just a matter of seeing who's going to answer the question, and because if it's a training and development related question, it will come to me, production development and so on. So nothing about distribution to date, because we haven't presented distribution or other applications. So let's keep it to training, development, and production and marketing for now.
Okay.
Is it clear?
We have a question here from Sbusiso Mulefe. It's on our Facebook Live. Sbusiso wants to know the criteria that it was presented for bursaries. Is it for national student, or is it for provincial students? Or does it cover all nationally or per province?
Okay. So do you want me to answer that, or you want to read out the questions?
I'm going to answer. And
okay,
then
so,
we have a question again for clarity from Sbusi Sumuli. Okay.
Okay. What is I'm listening?
Okay, are you with me, leader?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, we have another question and clarity that is seeking from Sbusiso Mulefe, who is talking about the language barrier that was mentioned. He says, is there a difference? I like to disagree with the notation of the language barrier that was mentioned. What is the way forward?
Language barrier on which one? Production, training, because we need to be
I think
ask me to be specific on that.
I think Sbusiso will clarify on that because I believe he's listening.
Okay.
And then Tato also wants the criteria for funding that was mentioned. It is great because it makes it possible for an African child to get, but can we please get it again as it was too quick to grasp?
Okay. All right, I got that.
That's from Facebook Live. Can we go to the Zoom chat?
Please do.
Okay, the Zoom chat. We have Refilo who is asking what? Okay, no, it's from John Wami. Refilo, can the filmmaker who live in the country on a refugee status apply for funding? And if yes, what are the chances of approval?
Okay.
And then we have another question again. Can Nfvf develop a template document to help tier 1 and 2 navigate through the system and learn fast? The Nfvf is complex and many are disqualified simply because of the complexity and technicalities of the documents. We have Future G who is asking, how can we access Nfvf in the Free State? And then we have Nontobeko who's saying, with regard to the national bursary, there is a challenge with receiving an acceptance letter before the closing date of the national bursary. The public institution that I applied for last year responded later this year after closing date of the national bursary. Do you consider private institution like AFDA? And then last question, Mr. Henry, for production funding, as a tier 3 producer, if co-produce a movie with tier of 1+2 producer, would I qualify for their type of funding?
Okay.
Those are the questions. Yes.
I've got
and I've seen some colleagues. And
so I was saying I've noted 7 questions. On it's
okay.
8 questions. Yeah. Can you hear me? Palisa?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Henry. I can hear you, Mr.
Yeah, I was
Henry.
saying. All right, sorry. I was saying I've noted down 8 questions.
Okay. I see we also have hands that are risen for questions.
I think maybe let's take those questions as well, because I think it's better to answer the questions all at once, so that we know we can proceed with the presentation. So I think let's give those that have raised their hands to ask questions, and then we can complete this session of asking questions. So can you, please ask them to raise the questions.
Okay. We will have Zandile followed by Tando.
Okay. Zandile, we're listening. Please ask a question.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chauke and Palisa. My question to you, Mr. Chauke, you spoke about CDBA training initiative. Can you please elaborate on how do I qualify for that? What is the criteria used?
Okay.
My second question goes to Nombuso. When Nombuso was speaking about festival hosting, she spoke about the one must be capable of of hosting a festival. Now my question is it compulsory that one must have hosted a festival before they can consider the funding, or the person should demonstrate the capabilities of hosting the festival?
Okay.
That's all I have.
Noted.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zandile.
Tando. Can we have Tando, please? Okay, Tando, if Tando is not available, say Farao.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Farao.
Okay, I have a couple of questions here. For production, right, it said that you required 2 documents. The first would be a major turning points document and the production script. When you are a producer and let's say you're making a film which is to be turned into, let's say, a TV series, would the production script adapt to a TV format, or does it still continue as a movie script? And then also with the major turning points document, is it when we email it through, as we mentioned that we're going to be working with a script editor, is it the final draft of the major turning points that's going to be adapted into the script, or is it an enticing document to invite the Nfvf?
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
So those are 2 questions. Okay.
Hello,
Saja?
leaders. Can I ask my question?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yes, you can, Saja.
Good afternoon, leadership. My name is Jezreel Wenzel from the Central Karoo, the town Beaufort West to be exact. I'm a proud member of SACAIF. I would love to know, I'm especially interested in the last presentation about the festival. Like I hosted a festival last year, which we started. It's called the Karoo Gaop Festival, which means the Karoo Art Festival. We did it with little funding from social development. We got local businesses on board, but we did the festival. We have financial report. We have everything in place. What I would like to know is, we like to get everything like do we have everything in place? But I mean, is there someone that can like assist us? Maybe we send a proposal, someone that can fine tune for us, or SACAIF can assist with that. And then the other thing that I would like to hear is, if we do have everything in place, by when do we apply? Because we also have already a clear vision as to what we want to do with the festival 2020. We want to make this an annual festival. That's why we started it last year with a little funding, with our own resources, with what we got. So we would like to really make it an annual one in Beaufort West. So that's basically my question. We hosted it under the company. We have artists that we work with. We have motivational letters. We did capture a few short video clips on the festival, some visuals also. So that is basically what I would like to know.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Do you have someone who still wants to ask question? Alisa, do you have another person who wants to ask a question? Okay, I don't know what's happening. Romeo, can you I don't know, can we answer the questions now?
Yes, hello, Mr. Henry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I think there was a bit of a delay there. So I was asking, is it all the questions you got, or can we proceed? Sorry? Can we answer the questions now?
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Henry. Maybe Palisa is having a network challenge. Yeah, I think you can answer those questions, and then you can then proceed with the presentation. Yeah.
All right. So I think
okay.
Sorry.
I think let's check Palisa if she has any questions. But I think if she doesn't have any, you can respond to those ones because then the other questions will be answered in the next session when you are close there.
Okay, that's fine. I think let me start with. Sorry.
We can proceed answering the questions.
Okay, no, thank you so much, Palisa. I think let me start by answering the question from Boo. Is it Boo? Regarding the criteria for bursary. I think he wanted to find out if the criteria that we had projected, was it for provincially or nationally. I think maybe to answer his question, we are the national body, so we cater non-provinces. So this is for national. So meaning when we advertise for bursary, we are looking for applications across South Africa as a whole, from the 9 provinces. So it's for national. And then I'm not sure, did Spu give clarity regarding the language barrier? Because there was a question about him regarding the language barrier.
I can take that one.
Yeah.
Just in terms of language, we do have a language policy within Nfvf. So you can apply like in Sesotho, you can apply in Zulu, Afrikaans, English. After we've received those applications, then we have a responsibility to then either find panelists who'd be able to then read in the language, or we then have to get it out to get it translated, and then it will be sent back to the panel after it's been translated. So you can, it doesn't have to be like an application in English. I only know of those, I guess, Afrikaans, Sotho, and Zulu that are included at the moment. There wasn't a lot of clarity in terms of what exactly, but if you're asking if, for instance, your script or the application can be in a different language, then it can be.
Okay, thank you so much, Refilio. I hope Tato was answered on that. And that, no, that was Boo. It was Boo. So Tato's question was regarding the funding criteria for bursary, for funding in general for Nfvf. Tato, we have this funding policy on our website. What we can do from maybe at the end of the presentation, we can share the funding policy with the archive so that they can share the document with you. But if you want more information, you can go to the Nfvf website under the funding tab. This is where you're going to get the funding criteria and like the funding policy, which will guide you in terms of criteria, who qualifies for what. But then we can share the documents with archive, and then they'll share with you guys. And Refilo, I believe this one goes to you regarding the refugee.
Okay. Maybe let me go through all of my questions and then, yeah, okay. So there was a question about if you've got refugee status, if you would be eligible to apply, and what the chances are of your project being successful. So in terms of if you've got refugee status, or even if you've maybe been also in South Africa for a long time and you've actually got papers that prove that you've got permanent residency, then you are allowed to apply. The only thing is that you must just make sure that you provide the necessary paperwork. So where you would ordinarily attach an ID, this is where you'd attach this kind of information. So this is basically compliance documentation. So after it has obviously been passed by the applications team, then it will go to our panel. In terms of your success rates, in terms of whether you will be, if you stand a chance at all, it all depends on the actual project that you are submitting. So I think this then speaks to your compliance documentation, but you are allowed to apply. I think there was a question about if you're a tier 3 filmmaker, but you've worked with tier 1s and tier 2s, whether that would make you eligible to apply as a tier 2. So basically, if you have, I think one of the things that we do recognize is that perhaps maybe on your own, you haven't worked on feature films and all of these things. You haven't worked on feature films, you haven't worked on television shows, but perhaps you were working within a company and you were working in a role that allowed you to play in that space. So basically, if you have maybe occupied a producer, director, or writer role, even if it was not your own company, then it's something that we can obviously it's something that we can consider. for you to then move up a tier. But as I said, the danger in that is that sometimes if you are not ready or you don't have the relevant experience, then you are going to be put against someone who's highly experienced. So sometimes in some instances it's not within your benefit. Another thing that you can do is that you can team up with somebody who perhaps has a production company which has a record. Maybe they are a tier 2 company, and then you can have a contract between yourselves to say, if we get the funding, then I am going to occupy this role within the project. But do that before the funding is in place. There was another question that has to do with turning points and synopses. Okay, I think let me just take a step back. I hope I haven't caused confusion. So at the point of when you put in an application to the Nfvf, if you are a tier 3 filmmaker looking for funding for development, with regards to the story, the only thing that you will submit is your synopsis, which is a 1 to 2 pager document about what the film is about. If you are a tier 1 or a tier 2 filmmaker, you'll submit a synopsis and potentially an outline or a treatment of the film. So that's all you submit at that stage. If you are applying for production, regardless of the tier you are in, we do need to see a synopsis. You'd send a treatment, and then you'd have to mandatory would be a script so that we see what you are actually going to be submitting. So when I was speaking to the turning points and everything else, I was speaking that this then comes into play only after you've been given the approval. So what would happen then? I think you were asking if you need to send a final draft. Basically, what's going to happen is that if you've been given the approval, you will have a script editor that is assigned to the project. You will send whatever the deliverable is, and then you'll be given notes to then brush up on perhaps areas that maybe are not clear or areas that need strengthening. So it's a constant back and forth until you get to a final deliverable that is fine, and then you move on to the next thing, which will be the outline. You fix that up, you move on to the next thing until such a time that you get to a final script. So the development contract is basically, it's open for a period of 2 years with the understanding that it is going to be a back and forth throughout the time. And then you asked another question about whether you can take a TV script and adapt it, I think, to a feature film, something along those lines. I hope I heard you correctly. So most of the funding that we do fund at the moment is for standalone projects. We do have funding for TV formats. As it stands within our current policy, this is not your drama series or something along those lines. It's more your idols, your Big Brother, your Come Dine With Me, your Date My Family, those kinds of shows that are predictable, where you can say that in minute 1, this is what happens. In minute 2, this is what happens. In minute 3, this is what happens. So right now, those are the only TV, I guess, considerations that we do have. So I think in terms of adaptation, you must just think of Nfvf funding mostly is for a documentary, or it's for a feature film, or it's for short films. I think that was all from the production.
There's another question regarding the tier 1 templates. I'm not sure you.
Oh yeah, I think there was a template. I think no, the template was to do with applying, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I think it was about applying and how there's a bit of a difficulty in terms of navigating the website. So we open the call for funding. The call for funding, it goes onto our website. When we open the call, we open it for a period of a month. On the call, we've got Thandekile Hlatshwayo, and then we've also got a lady by the name of Manti Sekwakwa, who's not here with us. But basically, I think it helps that immediately when we do open for funding, that you start trying to kind of develop a profile on the website, and then you engage the team quickly, just so that we can assist you. Because a lot of the time, what happens is that people wait for the last day or, the last 2 days, and then the team is quite inundated, and we really do struggle to assist everybody. So I think as soon as the call is open, then contact our team, just so that we can take you through step by step. But we do have 2 ladies in the applications office who will even, so what you can do is that you can create a profile, you can add all of your attachments. What a lot of people do, they add all of the attachments, and then before you click on submit, you then give a call or you send an email to our applications office, and then you just ask them, can you please just double check that all of my information is there, it's correct. And then once they've given you that go ahead, then you can click submit.
Okay,